Hey folks, Pastor Dave Grisham here for Official Street Preachers, and today we're beginning a new series of videos that I'm going to do once a week called News and Views, where I'm going to talk about some news that's going on in the world and talk about it from a biblical standpoint so that we can kind of interpret what God says through the Word and apply it to what's going on in the world. And talk about things that are controversial, talk about things that that we need to know about, what's going on, and end times prophecy, all these kinds of different things, lump them all in together and just talk about everything that's going on. I'm also going to get back to doing my weekly Bible study teachings on here, so I'll be doing that. But right now I'm going to be doing this particular show called News and Views. News and Views. And so I'm going to start talking about some of the news things that are going on in the world and start talking about it from how we should understand it as Christians and look at the ridiculous things that are going on in the world. The world has gone completely insane. Now, if you turn over to, I want to start this off with Romans chapter 1. Romans chapter 1 is really important to read because when you look at the end of it, it talks about, if you study Romans chapter 1, you know that it's really discussing, it's talking about how people fall into sin. They start walking away from God, or how nations depart from God. Well, at the very end of Romans chapter 1, it's very interesting what it says. Starting in verse 29. Now, this is talking about the very end of things. This is what your society is going to look like if you completely get away from God. And that's what this whole series is going to be based on. It's going to be based on basically Romans 1, 29 through 32. And showing you how all these things are coming to pass in our modern American society and in the world itself. So it says here, we'll start in verse 28, actually verse 28. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, so the world is not wanting to retain God in its knowledge. You know, they want to use evolution to explain away creation. They want to talk about how the earth is billions of years old and you got to have all this time in order for the earth to be created or to be come out of an evolutionary natural process. They got to keep ever increasing the time because there's just not enough time to make their stupid theory work. So they take God out of the creation. They're taking God out of the classroom. They're taking God out of government. They're taking God out of the family. They're taking God out of their hearts. And when that happens, here's what the Bible says. When you finally start getting to that point, God gave them over to a debased, or in some translations says reprobate mind. Okay, so we're going to talk about reprobates. To do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. That's what the world is turning into, folks. That is what the world is turning into. So let's start off today with a little bit of the United States Senate. So Charles Schumer, who is the majority leader in the United States Senate, is considering changing the dress code rules. The dress code basically states that if you are going to be on the Senate floor, men have to wear like jackets and ties, and the women have to wear, like a pantsuit or a dress. They have to wear something that's somewhat formal, like business formal attire. To be respectful of the people of the United States and show some respect for the Senate itself, right? And this is a gentlewoman's and gentlewomen's place. You got to show the proper decorum, right? That's what It's always been, it's been a rule. There's been a dress code there ever since the Senate came into being. But now Chuck Schumer wants to change it. Why? Well, because of Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania. The guy is mentally not all there. And he likes to dress like a bum. He basically dresses in sweatpants and hoodies and stuff like that. And they want to change this dress code so that he's not in violation of it. So because one guy doesn't feel like following the rules, then everybody else has to change what they're doing. They have to start allowing nonsense because one guy might get his feelings hurt. Well, come on. Isn't that really how the Democrats operate? Isn't that really how they operate? I mean, you could have a Christmas program at your school and be singing Christmas carols, and one person gets offended because, oh my goodness, they said the word God or they said the word Jesus in a setting where the school is singing. They're singing Christmas program. Somebody mentioned Jesus, and so now they're one person calls or writes a letter to the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and now everybody's threatening to sue. And by golly, we gotta get rid of Jesus that's pleasing everybody else in the school to accommodate this one idiot who thinks his offense is the greatest transgression since the Garden of Eden, I guess. And we got to accommodate this one person. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And that's where it's going in the United States Senate. Now, mind you, these are the same people, this is the same Democrat Party that supports transgenderism, that supports drag queens, men dressing like women, women dressing like men. Where do you think this is going to go? What do you really think they're doing here to pave the way for something else? Oh, they're paving the way for drag queens. I'm not a prophet. I don't claim to be a prophet, but let me make a prediction. I'm going to predict to you that in the very near future, there's going to be somebody dressed as a drag queen in the Senate, and then you're expected to take this wacko seriously. Can you imagine him up there debating some bill that they're trying to pass, and the guy's dressed like a drag queen, and you're expected to take that guy seriously? Or maybe it's going to be a woman transgendering into a man, and a blue-haired freak who is going to be standing up there. See, they got to make room in the Democrat Party for the freaks to come into the system, and we got to show some respect for the freaks. They're going to come in there and try to be senators and congressmen. That's where this is going. The Congress and Senate, it's not just going to be words anymore. It's going to be what you see on TV. They're going to turn into a total box of Fruit Loops. That's where they're going. They're just going to turn into a giant box of Fruit Loops. It's like the whole Congress is going to turn into a bowl of cereal full of nuts, fruits, and flakes. That's what's happening in our government. And you think we're going to win a war if we go to war with the Russians? No, I don't think so. Ukraine is going to lose this war, and if we fight the Russians, we're going to lose that war because we're too busy making room for freaks in our society. Okay, so enough about Charles Schumer and his ridiculous dress code. And by the way, with the Democrats in the Senate, trust me, I'd rather have January 6th protesters in the Senate than I'd rather have the Democrats in there, because the January 6th protesters did far less damage to our country and our democracy than these wacko Democrats are doing. Let me tell you. Okay, it seems also a razor company is now suffering from a Bud Light moment. A razor company called Braun Razors, has put out some advertising on their website, and one of the pictures that people picked up on, it's on social media, it's a photograph of a transgender man, a woman trying to pretend to be a man, translated, and she is shaving, and you can see that she's got her shirt off, like a man would do in the bathroom, right? Have his shirt off, and basically she has mastectomy scars from a double mastectomy on her chest. Notice I keep referring to her as her. That's because she will always be a woman. She will never be a man. Women cannot be men, and men cannot be women. So now they're having a real Bud Light moment for Braun razors. So, if you're thinking about buying razor, buy Gillette. Don't buy Braun. Don't buy their stuff. Go out and withhold your money from these companies that are trying to shove this garbage down your throat at every turn. And I've got some more stories here we're going to be talking about here in a second, that it's exactly the same with a lot of these stories that I'm going to talk about. Is they're trying to shove this garbage down your throats. They're trying to shove it down your throats in sports. They're trying to shove it down your throats in the U.S. Senate. They're trying to shove it down your throat in the schools to your children. They're marching it up and down the streets. They always say, why don't you just leave these people alone and let them live their life? Why don't they just leave us alone and let us live for Jesus? They're not going to leave us alone and let us live for God. They don't want to leave us alone. They want to try to force us to acknowledge it as normal, which we real Christians will never do. They want to try to force us to acknowledge that it's proper, that it's equal, that a homosexual relationship is equal to a heterosexual relationship. Can't be equal, because only one of those can produce kids. Every single person on this planet is a testimony to the truth that only heterosexuality can produce children. And so it is not, nor ever will be, equal to that of heterosexuality, what God designed men and women to do in terms of sex. It will never be the equal. That is vastly superior. Homosexuality and transgenderism and all this other stuff is vastly inferior and will always be inferior. Matter of fact, it's not only inferior, it's actually evil. It's not just less good, it is absolutely abominable. And so that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to shove these abominations down our throats at every step of the way. So I just want to encourage you to go out, and when you're out and about, don't buy Braun razors. Don't buy them. And complain to the store that carries them. I don't want that. That garbage. We're not going to buy that anymore. And we don't even want to see it in the store. It's disgusting. We don't want this stuff shoved down our throats. So they're having a real come to Bud Light moment, so to speak. And people are walking away from Braun razors because they're getting disgusted by this stuff. As they should be. As they should be. Now there's something going on with football. As usual, you see, they're trying to take a sport in which they've got real men, football players, and they got real women, cheerleaders. And they're trying to corrupt that. We just can't have that distinction there. We got to blur the lines. We just got to, turn that all upside down, make evil for good and good for evil, and turn God's order of things on its head. We can't have real men be real men. No, we can't have real women be cheerleaders. We've got to have a transgender cheerleader, or should I say a queer leader. They've got some real cheerleaders and one queer leader on the Carolina Panthers team. Don't watch the Carolina Panthers. I don't care who they play. Don't buy any tickets. Don't buy their jerseys. Don't buy coffee mugs. Don't buy any of their stuff. Boycott the Carolina Panthers because they're trying to shove the transgender stuff down your throat, even in football. They got this bald-headed dude who is pretending to be a woman out there prancing around, acting like so effeminate. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I could hardly even look at the pictures when I looked at this news article to talk about it today on News and Views. And it's disgusting. And that's what our country has come to. And we're going to have to fight back. And the way you fight back is you fight with your dollars. Okay? If the NFL can't maintain its purity in terms of just normalcy, if they can't maintain their purity in the case of normalcy, then you just don't need to watch them. You don't need to watch them. You don't need to buy their stuff. You should just not buy anything from the Carolina Panthers. Don't watch their don't and then write to all their advertisers. If the Carolina Panthers are playing in a game and there is a company that is advertising during that show, you should call the advertisers and tell them you're not going to buy their products unless they pull their advertising from the Carolina Panthers. Okay? We got to fight back on this stuff. And the way to fight back against this stuff is you got to do it spiritually through Jesus Christ. You got to preach the truth. You got to pray. You got to do those things as a Christian. That's how you fight it spiritually. But in the physical sense, the way to fight it is by boycotting this nonsense, is by choosing not to spend your money on the Carolina Panthers. And it's revolting. It is revolting. Okay. Now, there's a big thing that's really come out, and this has nothing to do with the homosexual agenda, although there may be some links later. The CBDC, the central bank digital currency that the feds have been developing for quite some time, has just gone live. It's gone active. I suppose it's in the beta phase, it's in the testing phase. They're actually using it for some sort of transactions. And so what is the CBDC, central bank digital currency? It is basically going to replace the cash in your wallet. It's going to replace the digital dollars, I guess, that you have in the bank right now or on your credit card or wherever you may have this digital currency at the moment. It's basically it's gonna be a cashless society. This is the first concrete step towards a cashless society. The real danger of this is of this digital devil, is what I like to call it, is it is going to become financial slavery. It's going to turn into financial slavery. They're going to use the climate crisis as an excuse to put a damper on some of your spending. You see, the thing is about the CBDC, the digital currency, is that not only is it digital and there's no paper. See, they've gone from taking away your silver and gold and copper, which is real money, and then they went to fake coins with just pot metal and basically paper bills, fiat currency, to digital currency. Now you don't even have the paper and you don't even have the coins. It's just numbers. That's all it is on a computer screen. Lord help us if the whole world blacks out. Nobody will have any money. But anyway, they've gone from that to the digital, and the digital currency is not only trackable, traceable, but it's also programmable. And the key feature of that is this. They know where your money's coming from and where it's going. The federal government, and this is why I think we need to fight against it. I believe this is a violation of our Fourth Amendment rights. It's a search and possibly a seizure without due process. They're searching you and where you spend your money. They're searching your financial records without a warrant, by knowing in advance all your financial records, because all your financial records of what you buy and what you receive in terms of money will all be on government servers. They're going to know everything, right down to the last penny. They're going to know it all. And they're going to say this is a way to fight crime and make people pay their fair share of taxes and all that garbage. And that might work for that. But the problem is you're going to lose your privacy, and the government is going to know everything you're doing, and you're going to lose your rights to with your finances when it comes to searching without a warrant, because all they got to do is look at their database and there's your stuff right there. They don't need a warrant. It's on their computer. It's already in their system. They've already got it. So that's going to be a real problem. And because it's programmable, all they have to do is, if their climate crisis gets to a point where they just have to take some emergency action, it's for our own good, folks. It's for our own good. These guys are the Avengers. They're watching over Earth. They're going to save us from the big bad climate crisis. And they're going to do it by taxing you to death. Let me tell you what happens in China right now. In China, they got cameras everywhere with facial recognition. Let's say that the traffic is just moving too slow and the traffic light is taking too long and you decide to jaywalk in China. You walk across the street, in the middle of the street, a camera takes a picture of your face. They recognize immediately who you are. They trace you to your bank account. They charge you with jaywalking and take the money, boom, for the fine right out of your bank. So by the time you get across the street and go to the place you want to go spend your money, you may not have any money in your bank because they just took it. Because they just convicted you without a trial, without anything, that you're guilty of jaywalking, and they just immediately reached into your bank and took your money. That's the kind of power the government has. That's the kind of power the government wants over your money. They're going to know if you buy gold or silver. They're going to know if you're going to buy guns. We'll get to that in just a minute. But what's going to happen is they're going to decide how many gallons of gas you should be allowed to buy because your carbon footprint is just too big. Just too big. Red meat? No. That's a big carbon footprint thing. You can buy all the crickets and grasshoppers you want to eat, but we're going to limit you on chicken, pork, and beef, and lamb, and whatever else of meat there is, actual real meat. We're going to limit you on how much you can buy every week. And once you reach that limit, well, our system is automatically programmed just not to let you buy anymore. You know, that's how it's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. You're going to have to try to figure workarounds. You're going to have to try to figure out how to cheat the system. You know, like find somebody that's a vegetarian and say, look, dude, can I give you $20 so you can buy meat since you don't buy it and then you give it to me? I mean, you're going to have to figure out weird workarounds like that. You're going to have to figure out how to do things outside the system. You're going to have to learn to game the system. That's coming. That is absolutely coming. The CBDC, this central bank digital currency, is fully programmable. They don't want you to buy a certain amount of gas or a certain type of gas. Boom. If they declare a national emergency and they don't want you to go anywhere, oh, we got another COVID-19 outbreak. We're doing lockdowns. You can't buy gas. Boop. And they just cut you off with a keystroke. Push the computer keystroke and bingo. You can't buy gas. That means you can't go anywhere unless you've already got gas in your car, right? They can just stop you from traveling. They can shut down any opportunity to even buy airline tickets. They can shut down the airlines by stopping your ability to buy airline tickets on the internet or personally. See, they got all kinds of controls. They can impose economic sanctions on you if they don't like your views on the LGBT stuff. Oh, hate speech? Oh, yeah, well, you're not going to be able to travel, you know, if you, they can punish you with economic sanctions. That's exactly what they do in China. That is exactly what's coming to the United States. You need to fight against this. There needs to be a lawsuit, a massive lawsuit filed against the federal government for implementing the CBDC because it is absolutely a violation of our rights because they are searching your financial records without a warrant. They are intruding into every aspect of your finances without a warrant, without you even being accused of a crime. Without you even being accused. They're sticking their big, fat, big brother nose into your financial business. And outside of breaking the law, as long as you don't break some kind of a law, the government has no business knowing what you spend your money on. It's none of their business on what you decide to buy. So now let's talk about guns. Because let me tell you something. This is going to be de facto gun registration. Let me explain that. Okay. The ATF has just recently implemented a new rule with the blessings of the Biden administration that is going to make it virtually almost certain that you're going to have to go through an FFL dealer. What they've done is they've basically said if you sell a gun for any kind of a profit, perhaps even one gun, just any gun, that you are now a dealer and you're required an FFL. Or you're gonna if you want to transfer a gun, they want everyone to go through an FFL dealer. And so they're rewriting these rules, these ATF rules, so that it's going to push you into having to go to an FFL dealer to get a gun transferred, even on a private transaction. Say you want to give a gun to your son or your daughter, or you want to sell a gun privately, a private transaction. You would have to go to an FFL dealer, and he will then charge you a fee, and there's the rub right there. The minute there's a financial transaction involved with guns, the government is going to know exactly what you have, even if you pay cash, because basically there'll be no cash. It'll all be trackable, traceable, and controllable. Okay? Programmable and controllable. So right now, if you go buy a gun and you go to an FFL dealer and you lay your money down, you pay cash, and then you buy a gun, there's no financial computer record of it other than what's on the computer there at the gun store. Or if you buy from a private individual, there is no record at all. And if you go to an FFL dealer, though, they do what's called an instant background check. And trust me, it's not instant. They call it that, but hey, nothing is ever what they call it. The Obamacare was called the Healthcare Affordability Act. It wasn't very affordable, was it? So they always put these labels that lie on there. And so this instant background check is not very instant. Sometimes it takes days. Depends. So let's say you go on there and you do your instant background check. When it comes back to proceed with transaction, it'll say proceed with transaction. That is the green light that you have passed the background check and you may now receive the firearm. Okay? You may now receive the firearm. That system, whatever you do in there, when you get a firearm transferred, when you sell it to the dealer or you buy from the dealer or a firearm is transferred to you, if it goes through the dealer, like you buy it online and you go through an FFL, or you transfer it from out of state and it goes through an FFL, anything that goes through the FFL requires this background check. And once that background check is done, it goes into the federal system, but by law, they have to delete all that information of that transaction after 30 days. So in 30 days, it automatically gets deleted from the system. This is because Congress did not want that system to be misused against Congress's will, so that the ATF or the FBI could not use that as a de facto gun registration system. Because gun registration historically has always led to gun confiscation. Once they know who's got the guns, what kind of guns they are, and where they are, then they can come and get the guns. And if you don't have the gun, they can throw you in prison until you cough it up, so to speak. So Congress did not want this system used as gun registration. However, there is no prohibition on financial aspects of it, only on the instant background check. In terms of the financing, there is a financial record of you buying that gun. It's with the credit card company or the debit card, a bank you use your debit card through, or if you pay cash, it's on their records, their financial records there, which is in some bank somewhere. But those are all private records. In order to get that financial information, you've got to get a court order. You've got to get what's called a warrant. And if you suspect there's been a crime, then you can apply to a judge for a warrant for probable cause, and then you can search those financial records and find out about that firearm. But if there's no probable cause, then you cannot get a warrant, and the government's got to keep its big fat nose out of there. It's none of their business, because you're exercising your rights. You see, the government doesn't have any right to know what you're doing with your free speech rights, and they don't have a right to know what you're doing with your religious rights. Why should they have a right to know what you're doing with your firearms rights? All these rights are equal under the Constitution. Your right to own a gun is just as valued and just as important as freedom of religion or freedom of speech or freedom from search and seizure without a warrant. All these rights are considered equal under the Constitution. So there is no prohibition for maintaining a gun registration based on financial records. That's why the CBDC is what I would consider a de facto gun registration system, because they're going to have all the financial records and they can just trace your finances to find out what guns you bought and what dealer you went through and everything. They can find out just as much information. They'll know the serial number of the gun. They'll know everything there is to know. They'll know what type of gun it is. Is it a long gun? Is it an AR-15? Is it a bolt-action rifle? Is it a handgun? Is it a Derringer? They're going to know what type of gun it is, how much you paid for it, who it was transferred from, who it was transferred to through the financial records, serial numbers, and all that stuff. All that's going to be maintained on financial records. And it will be legal because they're doing this through the CBDC, through the central bank digital currency. So this will, in fact, be a de facto gun registration system. That's why it's so important for someone somewhere to file a federal lawsuit to stop this based on the violation of our rights for unwarranted searches, because the government has no business being into your financial stuff unless there's probable cause to believe you committed a crime, in which case they got to go before a court and get a warrant. That's part of the checks and balances. The CBDC is going to circumvent a huge amount of these checks and balances in our Constitution. So that's what I had to say about that. And basically, they also, too, could decide at a later time, we've got an emergency going on right now. We got this disease going around. We just can't have crazy people stocking up on guns and ammunition. So, bam, we're going to program your money to where it can't buy any guns or ammunition. That's what I'm saying. It's programmable. They can stop you from buying guns, ammunition, firearms, accessories. They can stop you from buying whatever kind of food they don't want you to eat. They can stop you from buying fuel. They can stop you from buying too many rubber tires. They can ration anything they want. Anything they want, they can ration. They can also do price controls. They can do price controls through the CBDC by saying, no, according to our system, that item should only cost this amount, so we're not going to accept the transaction over that amount. They can implement price controls in the name of helping with inflation. So there is a lot of dangerous things that are going to come out of this CBDC. You should write your congressman. You should write your senators. You should get on the phone. You should complain. You should demonstrate in the streets. You should protest. You should file lawsuits in federal court against this thing, because this is economic tyranny. Brethren, hear me now. You're going to lose a lot of your rights through this system. And these are things that I've thought of. I'm sure there are other things. I'm not a financial expert, but I'm sure if I can think of these things, financial experts could probably think of a few more. You know, how are you going to buy and sell gold? Are you going to trade gold straight across? See, these are things you're going to have to do. We're going to have to learn to barter. We're going to have to, if you want to do a private transaction of a gun, well, okay, I'll trade you these guns for that tractor. Or I'll trade you this ammo for that food. You're going to have to start doing bartering and things like that. We're going to have to do workarounds on this system to maintain our privacy from the government and to maintain our freedom. That's what we're going to have to do. You're going to have to circumvent the law, if not outright break the law. I'm all for that. I am all for that. Tyranny requires cooperation, and this tyranny is not going to have my cooperation. I'm going to fight this system with civil disobedience at every opportune moment I get. And I'm not going to be quiet about it either. I'm going to stand out right there and try to be an example for everybody else. So that's where I stand on that. All right. So did you know that the Baltimore high schools were taking state tests? And did you know that 40% of all Baltimore high schools, 40% of their students tested zero proficiency in math? I'm not talking 10% proficiency, 50%, bad proficiency. We could, argue about, what's good, what's not, where can we improve? Zero. 40% of all Baltimore, Maryland high school students tested 0% proficiency in math. These guys can't add 2 plus 2. This is the failure of our schools. Our schools have gone from education to indoctrination. I've seen this as a street preacher. I see this all the time. We preach at schools. We see the stupidity of the students, and it's not necessarily all their fault. It's because you got adult parents who only care about sending their kids to school because that's what they're supposed to do. They don't check on what their kids are being taught because they're too busy and selfishly living their own personal lives, and they don't give a rat's rear end about their children as long as their kids are out of the way. We just need an 8-hour-a-day babysitter so we can go make more money to buy stuff we want, or we can, have some free time to do things for ourselves. And if our kid comes out stupid, well, that's the educational system's fault. No, it's partly the parents' fault. It's largely the parents' fault. God is going to judge parents for what they do and do not teach their children. So 40% of all Baltimore, Maryland high school students have zero proficiency in math. It's almost like they're not even teaching math. It's like they're just skipping that subject altogether. And this Common Core math, this is probably a big reason why. The Common Core math is overly complicated on purpose so that you get frustrated with it and you don't learn from it. You've got Common Core, which takes like 6 paragraphs of equations to come to one answer when you only need 2 lines with regular math. Occam's razor, the simplest solution is usually the right one. So we need to go back to teaching regular math. Well, the schools need to go back to teaching, period, rather than indoctrinating. Right now, they're more concerned with this LGBT garbage. They're more concerned with social justice. They're more concerned with all these other things going on socially. They're more interested in brainwashing your kids and preparing them for a socialist society than they are in preparing them to be critically thinking individual human beings who know their rights. See, they don't want you to have your freedoms. They got to make you stupid. If you can't read, then you can't read the Constitution. You can't read your Bible. It's more difficult to become a Christian if you're too stupid to read. It's more difficult to become a patriot for your country if you can't even read the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. So patriotism is on the decline in our country because Marxism is on the increase in our schools. We have a bunch of devils for teachers and administrators in the schools. Now, I'm not talking about all of them, but I think probably I would say in the Baltimore school system, probably most of the school teachers are not worth spit. They're not worth anything. They can't teach, except they can teach. They know how to teach. They're just not teaching the right things. They're deliberately withholding knowledge from the Baltimore high school students of math. Because, hey, if you don't know math, then, hey, who knows how much you're getting taxed, right? So we're going to increase taxes. What does that mean? How can you figure that out? What is inflation? I have no idea. I just go by what the government tells me because I'm too stupid to figure it out for myself. And that's what they want. They want people who are dumbed down. The Democrat Party was, and always has been the party of slavery. It's changed the way they do slavery. It used to be based on race. Now it's just they want to enslave everyone. It's not based on race. And the way they were doing slavery before was they would go out and kidnap you and put you into the chains of bondage, and then they would try to brainwash you to make you accept the chains. Well, today they've just figured out that they need to do it the other way. They're going to spend years indoctrinating and brainwashing you so that someday when they want to put you in slavery, you'll put your hands up and you'll ask for the chains. You'll accept them. You'll want them because you want to be taken care of. You want somebody to feed you and take care of you and give you free medical care and give you a free college education, which is going to further indoctrinate you into Marxism, because obviously the colleges are probably not teaching. I mean, if the colleges are doing gender studies and teaching you that there's 37 genders or 55 genders or whatever it is this month, then obviously they're not educating anyone either. They're indoctrinating people. It's the same thing, just on a higher level. Just on a higher level. So anyway, that is today's message for News and Views. And this is just a start. I will get my printer going again so I can print off articles and we can actually read some articles and go through them on this show after this. But once a week, I'm going to be doing News and Views. And so I wanted to start that this week with this program right off the bat. So God bless you all. You have a good day, and remember, listen to the Word and not the world. The Word is always telling you the truth. The Word is always truthful. The world lies to you. If anything the world says that contradicts this Bible, it is a lie, and God is not behind it. The devil is behind it. And you are under no obligations, Christians, to respect those lies, to believe those lies, to promulgate those lies, or even live by those lies. We are to live by the truth. We are to promote the truth. We are to speak the truth. And we are to teach others the truth. And that's what we do. Now, it's going to put us at odds with the world, and we're going to get persecuted for it. You know what? Bring it. I don't care. Because God before us, who can be against us? We win in the end. I've read the back of the book. We win. God bless you all. You have a good day.